Hello, people from around the universe! I am your host, the Italian Ace Trainer. And Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl have been out for over a month now, so we've had some time to digest them and play through most, if not all, of the content they have to offer, barring any potential future DLC, of course. The question remains, however, are these games better than the originals they're based on? Let's find out together. But before that, cue my intro. So I think a good way to go about finding the answer to this question is to talk about some of the things that Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl do best and some of the things that they do worst, and then compare them to the original games. But before we fully dive into this video, I do want to say that I'm actually going to be comparing Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl to Pokemon Platinum and not Diamond and Pearl, because Diamond and Pearl basically had all of their features directly transferred to Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl with either minor or major improvements or no change at all. And Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl also added some new stuff like the Grand Underground and Ramanas Park. So realistically, they're just strictly better than Diamond and Pearl. But since they don't have all of the Pokemon Platinum features, I think the question there is a bit more interesting. But with this out of the way, let's find out if Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are actually better games than the legendary Pokemon Platinum. Starting us off with one of the best things Diamond and Pearl has, and it has to be Ramanas Park. I mean, there's nothing like it in Pokemon Platinum. Obviously, it's a new area completely. And I've always been a big fan of these kind of like locations, I guess, where you can go and find different legendaries from other games through different methods, especially since you can also shiny hunt them here. So, in my opinion, that's a big plus, but even if you don't really care about this, it's undeniable that it's at least a point in favor of the new games compared to the old ones. But let's switch gears and talk about one of the things that the remakes do worst. And that has to be keeping the same encounter tables as Diamond and Pearl. I mean, seriously, Ilka, I know that you're trying to go for the faithful remake, but no one, literally no one, would have been upset by you using the Platinum version of the encounter tables as opposed to the vastly inferior and frankly quite infuriating version of Diamond and Pearl, where if you don't pick Infernape, you have one choice for a fire type, and that's Rapidash. Are you kidding me? Why? Now this issue is kinda sorta mitigated by the Grand Underground, which we'll get to shortly, but even then, you don't have access to the full list of encounters until you beat the league, which means that some of the Pokemon you would want to use for your playthrough, you still can't, because you don't have access to them until you've been in the main story. So yes, this 100% is a big point in favor of Platinum over the remakes. Going back to one of the best features in BDSP, and I mentioned it earlier, and that has to be the Grand Underground. I mean, the Underground in Sinnoh was fine before. I went there sparingly in the original games, mostly to get the fossils. That was kind of it. But in this game, it's a mix between the Sinnoh Underground, the Hoenn secret bases, and the Sword and Shield wild area. So that's a huge improvement over the original games, and therefore another big point in favor of Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl as opposed to Pokemon Platinum. And again, you can personally not like this feature, that's fine, but it doesn't matter because it is, once again, just strictly superior to what we have in Pokemon Platinum. Going back to the bad side of things, and this one just bothers me to no end, and that has to be single-use TMs being back. What? Why? Who wanted this? Who thought this was a good idea? Like, honestly, I am 90% convinced that the people at Ilka looked at the original games, then they looked at the most recent Pokemon game in Sword and Shield, saw TRs, and they're like, oh, those are single use with multiple of them being available. Clearly, that's what we should do with TMs. Brilliant. Oh, so good. What? No, it's stupid. Did you not see that TMs are no longer single use? Did you see anyone complaining about them? What was the point? I can't. Oh my gosh. I can't. I don't even have words for this. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. And even though, yes, Platinum also had single-use TMs, that was just the way things were in Gen 4. So I can't really hold it against Pokemon Platinum, but I will definitely hold it against Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, because that is unacceptable. Sorry about the long rant, but oh my gosh, this thing just bothers me every time I see it. Every time I see the TMs having little numbers next to them, that means that they're single use. It just drives me insane, and I cannot believe they did this. But okay, let's calm down. And let's talk about one of my favorite features in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. And that has to be the way they handled the difficulty of trainers that you face throughout. Now, I think this one deserves a bit more of an explanation because it's such a vague category. But what I mean by this is that already Gen 4 was notorious as one of the hardest games because of the League, and specifically Cynthia, being harder than most champions and Elite Fours that you face in the other games. And I had a concern that with the experience all letting you basically have a team that's actually going to be on par with Cynthia by the end, basically, this difficulty was kind of going to go away, and we were not going to have the same thrill as we did when we first took on the Sinnoh Elite Four and Cynthia. Well, as it turns out, I couldn't have been more wrong. I mean, I'll show you a couple clips from my Elite Four run, and you will see just how much I was struggling. Without speeds? In what universe? In what? What? Oh, she's gonna heal. No! Cynthia, no! Sword stance? Are you kidding me right now? Yeah, it was bad. Like, really bad. Like, really, really bad. And yes, a lot of that has to do with me being really unprepared for the League because I was stubborn and wanted to use all new Pokemon outside of Infernape, Staraptor, and Floatzel. And B, I didn't really prepare my team to take on the League specifically. I just had the team with the same moves for the most part that I had for my whole playthrough, and I took them into the League and just figured that it would be fine. And it turns out it was not fine because they made these fights so much more difficult than any other League since Gen 4, and potentially even harder than Gen 4, that if you're not prepared, like I wasn't, you are going to struggle. I mean, the fact that they have perfect IVs is already a big problem, but when you consider the fact that they have really good held items, something that was not there in the original games, with better moves in some cases, like Garchomp now having Source Dance, what? And with the AI generally being smarter than it was in Gen 4, not always, there are still some weird decisions that they make when they could finish off one of your Pokemon and they're like, oh, let me just use a non-very effective move so that you can still attack me. Like, I don't understand that. But for the most part, smarter than it was in Gen 4. When you combine all of this together, it makes it so that the experience in the League is a lot more difficult than I think anything in the past 10 years in Pokemon has been. With maybe the Ultra Necrozma fight being a notable exception. I say maybe because I don't really have experience with the Ultra Necrozma fight being difficult, because I always had a Mimikyu on my team, and Mimikyu's Z move basically one-shots him, when you combine it with First Impression from Gallipods. So, yeah, I think it was difficult, but I couldn't really tell you. But anyway, the league being this difficult is fantastic. I mean, I think I can speak for a lot of us, if not all of us, when I say that kind of thrill of actually beating a difficult opponent in a Pokemon game has been missing for so long that finally getting it back feels fantastic. I mean, sure, you can always cheese these opponents, and if you're more prepared than I was, they're definitely not impossible by any means. I mean, I still won on my first try, even though my team was not well equipped for this. But that's not really the point. Even the fact that I was struggling at all with the league, I think is a huge plus for Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, especially since I had an easier time with the Pokemon Platinum League than I did with the BDSP one. But now, it's time for by far the worst thing about Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. And no, it's not the glitches. I think the glitches are kind of neutral because they can be both fun and annoying depending on your perspective, so I'm not really going to talk about them. No. What I'm going to talk about is that they still kept the same team composition that every trainer in Diamond and Pearl had. Are you friggin' kidding me? What? 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 Okay, let's tone it down just a little bit, but this is maddening to me. I mean, they literally had the much improved team compositions at their fingertips in Pokemon Platinum. They did. They seriously did. And I don't even care that some of those Pokemon wouldn't be in the encounter table for Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Because one, those encounters should have been changed to the Pokemon Platinum ones. And two, I don't even know why it matters if a gym leader or an Elite Four or a champion has a Pokemon that you don't yet have access to. Seriously, I would much rather the NPCs have more interesting Pokemon and Pokemon that are of the actual typing they supposedly specialize in than whatever weird mess we get in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. These teams are just a relic of the past and were a mistake even back then, and the fact that they brought them back is infuriating and by far the worst thing about the new games. And yes, that does mean that I care much more about this than the fact that the post-game is the same as Diamond and Pearl and not Platinum. I mean, of course I wish I would have brought all of the different facilities from the battle area in Pokemon Platinum. And of course I wish that the post-game was everything that Platinum had plus everything that Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl had. But that's not something that I was ever expecting, and it's definitely something I can forgive given the precedent set by other remakes. But the teams still being the really bafflingly bad Diamond and Pearl ones, that's unacceptable. And look, I know that other remakes also keep the same teams as the original and not the third version of the game. I get it. But those teams were never so infuriating as the ones that we have in Diamond and Pearl. So to me, this is still unacceptable because, like, literally, they could have fixed so much in such an easy way by just using the Platinum teams instead of the Diamond and Pearl ones. Plus, I don't think anyone would have minded if the other remakes also would have used the improved teams that you usually get in the third version. So I think the point still stands regardless. But with all of this being taken into consideration, are the remakes better than the originals? Well, I think the answer overall is very close because there are some things I didn't mention that are nice additions, like Pokemon following you again is really good. And of course the graphics are improved, especially in battle. I think the chibi art style also really works, so I would say in general, but especially in battle. But, I mean, that's also just because the games came out, like, 15 years later, so of course, they're gonna have better graphics. But still, that would be another point in favor, and that does make this a very tight contest slash comparison. But I think overall, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl just barely edge out Platinum in being the better version of Sinnoh. And I think this is mostly because the thing that Platinum does better than the originals, mainly the NPC teams, the encounter tables, and the vastly superior battle area, are not quite enough, in my opinion, to make up for all of the new slash improved features that BDSP have. Like Pokemon following you again, the better graphics, Ramana's Park, the Grand Underground, and even though this is one of my least favorite things about the remakes, TMs being single use is technically handled better here because you get multiple of them anytime an NPC gives them to you. So I kinda have to give that as a point in favor of the remakes as well, even though really it's infuriating. It's still technically done better in the new games when compared strictly to the originals. But that is my video. And if you disagree with the answer, which I'm sure a lot of you will, then do let me know in the comments how dumb I am for saying that the remakes are better and how Platinum is the most impeccable game ever with no flaws whatsoever. And at that point, I'll just say, yeah, you know, I really like Platinum too, so that's not really a problem for me. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed this. If you want to see more Pokemon content related not just to Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, but also Legends Arceus and Pokemon stuff in general, then do consider subscribing. And I hope to see you all in the next video. But until then, remember to follow the way of the ace. See ya!